Thank you, Rabbi and Imam. Please remain standing for the presentation of the colors. The colors will be presented by the Joint Colorado Color Guard from the Army, Specialist Tara Gorman, and Specialist Madeline Marr, from the Air Force, Staff Sergeant Danielle Morgan, and Staff Sergeant Anthony Reese. At this point, I would like to invite all of the senators' children and grandchildren to come up and lead us in the pledge. Please remain standing for our musical presentation. This morning we are pleased to have the Brothers of Brass here to perform the national anthem with Armando Lopez on saxophone, Khalil Simon on sousaphone, Jake Herman and Nico Jimenez on drums, Matthew Rossman on trumpet, and Nate Bitter on the trombone. Thank you so much to the Brothers of Brass. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the preceding presentation be spread upon the pages of the journal.
Pursuant to the Constitution and the laws of the state of Colorado, I hereby call to order the second regular session of the Colorado Senate of the 74th General Assembly of the state of Colorado. Will the clerk please read the roll?
Senators Baisley,
Excused.
Bridges, Buckner, Coleman, Cutter, Danielson, Exum, Fields, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hanson, Henriksen, Jaquez Lewis, Kirkmeyer, Kolker, Liston, Lundin, Marchman, Michelson Janae, Mullica, Pelton B, Pelton Ark, Priola, Rich, Roberts, Rodriguez, Simpson, Smallwood, 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 Mr. President.
Here.
Here. Sullivan. Van Winkle. Will. Winter. Zenzinger. Mr. President.
Here. With 34 present and 0 absent and 1 excused, we do have a quorum. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend Senate Rule 31A for the purpose of allowing a current or former lobbyist who are family members of senators on the floor for the first day of session.
This does require a 2/3 vote. You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. The next order of business is the election of the Secretary of the Senate. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Ms. Markwell be elected as Secretary of the Senate during the second regular session of the 74th General Assembly.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Cindy, you don't have a vote on this. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted. Ms. Markwell, will you please come forward so that I may administer the oath of office? Sure you want to do this? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name,
Cindy Markwell,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the constitutions
that I will support the constitutions
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Colorado,
and the state of Colorado,
and faithfully perform
and faithfully perform
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
to which I am duly elected,
to which I am duly elected,
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my abilities.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that a committee be appointed to notify the House that the Senate is organized and ready for business.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, Senators Kolker, Gonzalez, and Gardner are appointed to a committee to notify the House that the Senate is organized. Members, you are excused. Please be brief.
It's the last one, Bob.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that the committee be appointed to notify the governor that the Senate is organized and ready for business.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, Senators Zenzinger, Hansen, and Smallwood are appointed to a committee to notify the governor that the Senate is organized. Members, you are excused. Good luck. The Senate will now stand in recess until the committees return. Who are these three individuals who have graced us with their presence, and what do you have to report? Representative Ortiz.
Senate President, it is an honor to be in the chamber. You know, I've heard about the red carpet treatment, but I've never heard about the ramp treatment. I do appreciate you guys pulling out a temporary ramp for me. And not only that, but giving me my own mobile mic. You know, it's a little ironic to me that the chamber's not fully accessible yet, since the average age in the Senate is a lot higher than the average age in the House. But I do look forward to the day that the chamber becomes fully accessible so we can be super friendly for the older age in the Senate. I was also lucky, I talk about silver linings, about bringing my own chair, because I remember being a baby lobbyist back in the day. And I was so glad the first time I came to the Senate that I brought my own chair because it gave me a place to sleep and snooze. But we are excited to announce that the House is ready for business, and I'm going to pass it on to my colleagues.
Representative Frizzell.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President. I bring greetings from the Colorado House of Representatives and would just like to mention that the House, which is higher in altitude, but also moves considerably faster, is organized and ready for business.
Representative Lukens.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President. The drama-free chamber is ready for business.
That is the funniest thing I have ever heard.
Okay.
Members, please welcome back to the Senate chambers President Grantham. The Senate will continue in recess until our committees report. The Senate will come back to order. Would the committees please report? Either.
Who's the chair of said committee?
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have traveled the very far distance to a different universe of the Colorado House and advised them that we are indeed organized and ready to do business. During that experience, we saw the best of America. And while it was a somewhat unruly gallery protest, it was done in a relatively peaceful manner. I told the minority leader when he appointed me to this committee that I would accept it on one condition, and that was that if I was not back within a reasonable time, that he would send the chief sergeant to bring me back safely. It was a joke then, but not now. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Part of what I reminded our colleagues in the House chamber is that we in the Senate don't need a board to vote. And so let us try over the next 120 days to be efficient in order to carry forward the work of the people of Colorado. In that vein, I am extraordinarily grateful to my colleague from across the aisle in the strange, faraway land of Colorado Springs for his reference to the birthplace of bobbing, but not the engagement of bobbing in the House. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Coker.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I reminded them, or actually apologized to them, that we were a little bit late, but not later than normal, because our New Year's resolution was to start 10 minutes late instead of 20 minutes late. So thank you very much.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. We need to let the body know that my colleagues reacquainted themselves with the governor. I introduced myself to the governor, and we did inform that office that we are organized and ready for business. Go ahead.
Senator Zinziger.
The governor unfortunately did not have any libations for us to celebrate this experience, but we did walk away with a handy pamphlet about the state and symbols and emblems of Colorado, so there's that.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. The governor indicated that he is excited to work with us and reminded us that if we pass bipartisan bills, they are veto-proof. So, pro tip for us here in the Senate, bipartisan bill equals veto-proof. Excited for this session, and so is he.
Unless Rodriguez is on.
Introduction and consideration of resolutions. Will the reader please read the title of Senate Joint Resolution Number 1?
Senate Joint Resolution 1, Senate Joint Resolution 1, Senators Fenberg and Lundin, Representatives Duran and Lynch, concerning changes to the deadline schedule.
Senator Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 1. Members, this is a resolution that I think folks were informed about prior to it being introduced, and is simply about adjusting some of the deadlines for our bills this session. Long story short, we're providing about a week or so grace period and having the deadlines reflect reality rather than just having us provide extensions every time you ask for them. So this means absolutely 0 extensions. Maybe, sort of. But I ask for an aye vote on this resolution.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motions for the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution Number 1. Are there any no votes?
With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Senate Joint Resolution Number 1 is passed. Co-sponsors.
Senators Bridges. It's going to be really helpful for your reelection. Colker. Gardner. Rich. Will the reader please read the title of Senate Joint Resolution 2?
Senate Joint Resolution 2, Senator Rodriguez, Representative McLaughlin, concerning the officers and employees of the second regular session of the 74th General Assembly.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 2 concerning the officers and employees of the General Assembly.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is for the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 2. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excuse, Senate Joint Resolution 2 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Will the reader please read the title of Senate Resolution 1?
Senate Resolution 1, Senator Rodriguez, concerning the appointment of officers and employees for the Senate convened in the second regular session of the 74th General Assembly.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate Resolution 1 lay over to tomorrow, Thursday, January 11th.
The motion is that the Senate Resolution 1 lay over to tomorrow, Thursday, January 11th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I request that the reader read the letter regarding the changes to the Audit Committee.
January 4th, 2024. Dear State Auditor Hunter, please be advised that I am appointing Senator Daphne Michelson-Jeannet to the Legislative Audit Committee effective starting January 16, 2024. She will be replacing Senator Robert Rodriguez, who will be stepping off of the committee. Sincerely, Steve Fenberg, Senate President.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the approval of the following change to the appropriate appointees to the Legislative Audit Committee effective January 16, 2024. Senator Michelson-Jeannet will replace Senator Rodriguez.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Senator Michelson-Jeannet is appointed to the Legislative Audit Committee effective January 16, 2024. The Senate will stand in a brief recess as we figure out what the hell the House is doing over there. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. While we are on recess, I'd like to take this time that we hear the remarks from Senator Fenberg, the President of the Senate, and Senator Lundin, the Senate Minority Leader.
Mr. Majority Leader, Mr. President Pro Tem, Mr. Minority Leader, friends, colleagues, loved ones, good morning, and welcome to the second session of the 74th General Assembly of the Colorado State Senate. It's an honor to be with you all here today, even if it seems a little too soon since the special session concluded. I want to start by recognizing a few folks that are here with us in the chamber. First of all, my wife, Lindsay. Lindsay, your support over these last several years has been immense, but I also know there isn't a bigger fan of term limits than you, and you might be ready for this to come to a close pretty soon. And of course, the real reason why I come to work every day, my best friends in the whole wide world, my daughters, Issa and Marlo. My Board of County Commissioners is here as well, Claire Levy, Marta Lochamin, and Ashley Stoltzman. The mayors from my district, Boulder Mayor Aaron Brockett, Louisville Mayor Chris Lay, and Superior Mayor Mark Lasis are here as well. It's been a year of change for many of us, and we do have some new faces and roles here in the chamber that I want to acknowledge as well. Most importantly, I want to extend an extremely warm welcome to our newest senator, Daphna Michelson-Janae. Daphna has been with us for a few months now, and of course, most of us have worked with her in the House, but we are still very excited to work alongside you, Senator. Welcome to the Senate. Senator Michelson-Janae's arrival here was necessitated by the departure of former Majority Leader and current traitor, Dominic Moreno, who broke our hearts this summer when he decamped for the greener pastures of the city of Denver. I used to refer to Dom as my work husband. he would quickly correct me and say he felt a little more comfortable in the work-wife role. And while I'm excited to work alongside the new majority leader, I got to admit, Robert, I'm not quite ready to call you my wife or my husband, but I'm sure we'll get there over these next 120 days, and congratulations to you on your new role. Another new addition to the leadership team is Senator Faith Winter, who is now serving as our assistant majority leader. Congratulations to you as well, Senator. You'll also see a few new faces up here at the desk and on the floor. I'm excited to introduce our new members of the nonpartisan staff to the team: Tammy, Eric, Mary, Shannon, Wayne, Marianne. Welcome aboard. I hope you brought some life jackets. Just kidding, sorta. You might need them. As for those who came back, Ryan, Jonathan, John, Frank, Ted, Matthew, Sadia, Rick, Tom, Randy, and Ben, and even you, Dave. Thank you for sticking around and for helping us this session and for your continued service to the state of Colorado. I want to recognize two people who have been with me on this journey from almost the very beginning. Mindy Miller and Nellie Moran. We've been through a lot together, and I'm so glad to be finishing it out with both of you by my side. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize someone who we all thought would have ridden off into the sunset by now, maybe seen a show at the Sphere, or sitting out at the pool with a cocktail in her hand. But you just can't seem to quit us, can you, Cindy? The true public servant of the Senate, Cindy Markwell, the best secretary this chamber has ever had. Thank you. You're like a second encore from your favorite band, where you think if you just keep clapping and keep cheering, they'll come back out. And she did, and we are so grateful for your service. Please join me in thanking Cindy for her commitment and her service to the state of Colorado and for this Senate chamber. However, Cindy, I think you've retired about 17 times now. So I'm going to say this into the record. When we have late nights, or when a certain senator is bobbing for hours upon hours, you should deputize your very competent staff, go home, be with family, or just simply get some rest, because eventually we're going to have to figure out how to do this without you, and we might as well start practicing this session. Speaking of bobbing, Senator Gardner called me last night to tell me he was running for the 5th Congressional District. How about that? You know, yeah, he's actually still talking from that call last night. It is a time of change. We wish all of you the best of luck if you're running for something else this coming year. It takes a lot to keep this place running. Our system of self-governance depends on, of course, people like Cindy and so many others that are in this room and in this building to help ensure civil society and our institutions persist. This is what I want to speak about today on this inaugural day of the second session of the 74th General Assembly, my last session serving with you in this chamber. The 35 of us have been given an incredible honor by the people of Colorado. Each of us plays an integral role in the democratic process. Our job is to take the values, beliefs, and experiences of our constituents and translate that into casting votes on their behalf on issues related to just about every topic you could think of, from critically important topics like license plate designs to uncontroversial, mundane bills like land use. We have the amazing opportunity to weigh in on so many different issues. After all, the legislative process is how we, as a group of millions of people who come from different walks of life, who have different priorities, and who maybe even at times believe in different facts, come together and make collective decisions for our state. We are called politicians, public figures. legislators, lawmakers, often we're called much, much worse. Yes, we are all of those things, but we are also something far more important, if less prestigious. We are caretakers. Caretakers of this great chamber, of our great state, and of this democracy. The democracy we're charged with defending is the foundation that underpins our republic. The ideals of our democracy can, and of course should, remain stable, but our values, our ideas, and the people that animate and utilize those concepts can and should evolve. I used to think back when I first got elected that my job was to be a radical change maker, to push the boundaries every day for what I believed in, to be, I guess, more of an activist than a politician. I now have a much simpler, perhaps less exciting vision of what the job actually is. We are political actors, yes, we have agendas and ideologies. On the campaign trail, we're candidates. At the town hall, we're public officials. And on the nightly news, we're spokespeople. But when you walk into this building, when you sit at the dais in committee in front of a nameplate, when you sit at one of the 35 oak desks that have been in this chamber for more than a century, you're simply a moment in time. You are one of 35 who have the honor, the responsibility to ensure there will be moments in time after we leave. It may seem like a low bar, but our first job is to not mess it up. Maybe I'm full of it. Half of you probably say, yeah, he's definitely full of it. I knew that for a while. Maybe I drank the Kool-Aid and I sold out. And this whole place is actually designed to keep the status quo. I walk up the steps of the rotunda every morning, and I get intoxicated by the marble and the beautiful gold dome and stained glass windows. Maybe it was built that way to get all of us to fall in line, to defend the institution instead of attacking it with change. Maybe. But it worked. And my time here has made me okay with that. Because if this institution, this thing we call democracy, was just simply a shell to be filled with political agendas every 2 or 4 years, it would be a recipe, I think, for a volatile government that probably wouldn't have survived, probably would have collapsed maybe generations ago. If this place was only a vessel for the populism of the day that swings with the blowing winds of trends and slogans, the pendulum would eventually swing off its hinge. It would result in the erosion of the institution of democracy, perhaps even civil order itself. Our founders and the architects of this great civic temple didn't, and of course couldn't have accounted for some of the threats facing it today. One of those threats is that an enormous amount of political debate no longer occurs primarily in the physical boundaries of these marble walls, or even, frankly, face-to-face amongst people. More often than not, it's happening here. It's happening through anonymous tweets where civil debate has been replaced by algorithms that are designed for outrage rather than understanding. Or it's a nightly news anchor who's made the calculus that viewership rises not with stories of bipartisanship or problem solving or collegiality, but with deadlock and drama. Or, frankly, it's increasingly us, the legislators, who sit here thinking sometimes about the quippy social media post that scores points with our followers, instead of taking the time to walk across the chamber and just talk to your colleague. Too often, our words and actions breed cynicism, feed hate for those we disagree with, and encourage more yelling and less listening. I think we must resist the urge to be performers. We must remind ourselves that to be a caretaker of this institution, we need to legislate for constituents, not for Twitter. We must live up to the same standards that every man or woman who sat in our desks before us over the last 150 years has lived up to. That's not to say our democracy and our institutions should be frozen in time. And of course, our goal should not be to preserve the status quo simply to preserve the status quo. Just because that's how it's always been done isn't good enough. That's not what I mean by calling on us to be caretakers, of course. But the way we approach debating ideas and how we treat each other, in other words, how we show up in our democracy, impacts the stability of this institution. If you think about it, with all that is working against it, the fact that we still have a democracy is actually kind of remarkable after all these years. It takes hard work to stay above the fray, especially when the alternative seems to be rewarded more these days. But if we've learned anything the last several years, it's that democracy is incredibly fragile. In the blink of an eye, our entire world can change. Just ask the Israelis to compare their lives from October 6th to October 8th. Or the Palestinian civilians who suddenly not only don't have a home, they don't have a neighborhood or a family, or in many cases, even a functioning society. It's mind-boggling how fast our politics and our world can change these days, and it's probably only going to speed up. In the coming years, our democracy and our institutions will be tested like they've never been tested before. The promise and the peril of artificial intelligence, the threat of a court-declared insurrectionist, a man who fomented a violent attack on our nation's capital and our democracy, once again is rising to power. Multiple wars raging across the globe, backed by superpowers, perhaps maybe a preview proxies for larger, more existential threats coming. So being a caretaker of an institution might not be why we ran for office. But if you think about all that is happening in this crazy, crazy world right now, and all the forces actively working against our democracy's survival, it suddenly seems like the most courageous and important thing we could possibly do with these positions of power we've been given is to simply do our part to ensure it continues. It is more important now than ever that we remind ourselves that we are here as representatives of others to engage in deliberative debate aimed at solving problems. We were not sent here to shout at those who disagree with us. We were not sent here to be a protest vote. We were sent here to fight for our values, not each other. We were sent here to govern. We know that humans are social creatures and the norms in a society are contagious. That also means that when norms break down, that breakdown also is contagious. You can't predict always where it ends. Frankly, we saw a small glimpse of this in the special session, in both chambers, and I've certainly been guilty of it myself. We are all responsible for our actions and for their consequences. So I ask you, what will our actions be this session? And what will the consequences of those actions be for this institution? My hope is for rigorous debate that results in better policy outcomes. My hope is for critical eyes on each piece of legislation that moves through this body, no matter if it's from a Democrat or a Republican. My hope is that we use the tools available to us to shape the world around us for the better. And that we do it together more often than we do it apart. And that will result in strengthening the institution. Yes, we should fight like hell for what we believe in. We should work day and night on crafting the policies we're passionate about. We should stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves, but most importantly, we should double down on a commitment to do all of it with deliberation, civility, and integrity. That's the gift that democratic legislative systems give us. They allow us each year to begin anew, to come to work and engage with each other's ideas, so we may confront the challenges that are facing us today. Each year, we have the opportunity to recommit to how we will work with one another. Today, I am making that commitment, and I hope all of you will as well. And let's face it, we're going to need to make that commitment together for it to work. If we're going to make progress on the immense challenges facing us, we have to make that commitment together. We are still facing the impacts of climate change on our landscapes and our rivers. I don't know about you, but I hope my daughters will experience the same sense of wonder that the beauty of Colorado's natural spaces instilled in me. But what good is clean air and healthy forests if only the rich can enjoy them? Everything has gotten more expensive. There's no question. I hope for my daughters to be able to afford to raise their daughters here, to have a home where they feel safe, secure, and happy. And speaking of children, I hope for an education system that no longer strives for the national average, but instead sets a new standard for how to truly prepare the next generation. Luckily, the solutions for turning those hopes into reality are right in front of us. Build more homes, fully fund our schools, expand transportation options, and preserve our public lands. We have major opportunities this session to make our mark for generations to come. Take the opportunity with school funding. Thanks to the responsible budgeting of Senators Zenzinger, Bridges, and Kirkmeyer, and of course, the rest of the Joint Budget Committee probably had a role in this as well, we're finally going to eliminate the budget stabilization factor once and for all. This will help us get on a path to pay teachers what their profession deserves and provide the much-needed classroom resources our students require. For years now, we've been shortchanging our schools and robbing our most critical assets of the care, training, and education they need to reach their potential. School is where our kids find themselves, shape their futures, and become all that they can be. But students and the teachers who guide and shape their growing minds can't reach their potential without the proper resources. The last time we fully funded our schools at the level required by our Constitution, President Obama had yet to shock the world wearing a tan suit. The Office was a huge hit on TV, not on streaming, like actual TV. My hair was brown. You get the point. It was a long time ago. The hole that we have dug ourselves out of is immense. Over time, we have shortchanged schools to the tune of nearly $10 billion. Now we're on a path to pay off that IOU. That's a big deal. Is it going to be enough? Of course not. But we will stop acting from a place of scarcity and move to a mindset of building for the future. We must remind ourselves that this is the floor, not the ceiling. It's the bare minimum, not the end goal. Our kids deserve it, our educators deserve it, our state deserves it, and our communities need it. And we're going to deliver so that every Colorado student can get the education they need to thrive. Another opportunity is to tackle head-on the housing affordability crisis. We need to do more to ensure more of us can afford to live, work, and play in the communities that we call home. Population growth and huge demand for housing has outpaced new construction, making it incredibly difficult for Coloradans to become first-time homeowners, making our state unaffordable for renters. The long tail of the pandemic is, of course, partially to blame, but policymakers like ourselves must accept some of the responsibility as well. And we have a job to do. If we don't do something, the opportunity to shape our state's future will slip through our hands. Everyone deserves a safe, affordable place to call home. To achieve that this year, we will work to help communities across the state increase the housing supply of for sale and for rent properties. We'll also do more to make sure folks can stay in their homes once they've achieved their dreams. Spiking housing prices have brought the property tax question in Colorado to a crescendo. And it turns out the answer was definitely not a certain double-lettered ballot initiative. We've provided significant relief to ease the pain for vulnerable folks over the past few years and during the special session. But that won't ensure that we aren't in this position again in the future. We need a long-term solution that ensures our local communities and the services we all rely on, libraries, fire departments, schools, have the resources they need while keeping property taxes reasonable. Over the next couple of months, a bipartisan task force chaired by Senator Hansen will work to identify these solutions and make recommendations on delivering relief without shortchanging essential local services. But of course, we can't talk about just building more homes. We also need to talk about how we get to and from those homes. The passage of 260 a few years ago finally put us on a more sustainable path to fund our state's transportation backlog. But we can and we must dream bigger. For one, we have an opportunity before us to take the federal government up on their commitment and bring in hundreds of millions of dollars to turn a statewide transit system into reality. We can see a future where a statewide rail system makes it easy, affordable, and safe to travel the entire length of our great state without ever touching an interstate. I can imagine regular and reliable train service to the mountain communities for all that they have to offer without having to first survive a harrowing drive up I-70. We can all imagine the impacts it will have on our traffic and our emissions if that rail system serves as a backbone to expanded and reliable bus and transit service that helps take thousands of cars off the roads. This session, we must ensure Colorado gets its fair share of the federal infrastructure funds and deliver the legacy of a modern, clean, and safe transportation system for generations to come. The list of goals we hope to accomplish is long. Later today, we'll start introducing bills that will be the first steps in the long journey of this session. We'll introduce Senator Michelson-Genet's bill to permanently extend the critical I Matter program, which provides up to 6 free mental health visits for students across the state of Colorado. Senator Sullivan's bill to help the Colorado Bureau of Investigations to investigate and prevent gun violence. We'll introduce Senator Fields and Senator Pelton's bipartisan bill to better support veterans. And Senator Roberts and Senator Simpson's bipartisan bill to conserve more water. This session, we'll also be introducing bills to further our work of acknowledging the wrongs of the past while setting ourselves up to ensure inclusive opportunity for all in the future. We'll expand access to quality, affordable health care and invest in programs to foster a workforce that meets our state's needs. We'll help communities prepare for, prevent, and respond to catastrophic wildfires. And that's just a start. The promise of a new session means we still have all of the time we need to exchange ideas and work together in this laboratory of democracy to solve problems. I'm excited to see what we come up with. But I'm also feeling a little bittersweet. This is my final opening day. It's funny how fast time flies. Raleigh Heath is here with us today. Raleigh, you're my mentor, not just my predecessor. It sure feels like yesterday when I was asking you for your endorsement. I never got that endorsement, but it sure does feel like it was just yesterday. I love you, Raleigh, and thank you for all of your support and your mentorship over these years. Today, I'm the president. But after today, I'm the future former president. And you know what they call former presidents? They don't. And that's ultimately a good thing. We're a citizen legislature, and we must always remember that. In the spirit of my friend Hugh McKean, we must remember to take the work seriously, but not ourselves. This time next year, I'll go from being Mr. President, to some of you, I'll be former Mr. President, to some of you, but to most of you, I'll just be Steve. Minority Leader Lundin, I'm glad you're the leader on the other side of the aisle for my final year. I appreciate your friendship and partnership and look forward to our work yet ahead. But before you get too excited, I am still in charge for the next 120 days. And I will do everything in my power to ensure the Senate continues to be the Senate. The upper chamber, where logic, reason, and thoughtful debate rule the day, not groupthink or raw partisanship. Where we embrace what the Senate was designed to do. Slow down when needed and deliberate. I will spend the next 120 days ensuring that we leave this institution better than we found it. To take care of this institution. And I hope you will ask yourselves how you'll do your part to be a caretaker as well. I have one idea I'd like to impart on how you can do that. It's actually the same challenge I gave on last year's opening day. And that is that we need to build stronger relationships with each other. Get that beer after a long committee hearing. Sit in each other's offices and get lost in conversation. Visit each other in their district. Get to know each other's families. If we can commit to doing the most human thing possible, build relationships with one another, then we are more likely to solve problems, not as Democrats and not as Republicans, but as Coloradans. Coloradans who care deeply about this chamber, about our democracy, and about our state. Let's do everything we can to remember that we can sometimes be opponents, but we are never enemies. We can do that by connecting with each other, not just on a policy or a political level, but on a human level. I'm excited for these next 120 days. But the countdown does begin today. So let's use them to their fullest to make a difference for all the hardworking individuals and families across this great state. They're counting on us, so let's get to work. Thank you. Mr. Minority Leader, the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
3 minutes. We'll see if we can increase that by a factor. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you for your comments as well. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Coloradans, thank you for being here. Dear colleagues, and I use those words with consideration, welcome back. It's good to see you. Please, if you would, join me in extending a special welcome to Yemi Mobolade, the mayor of Colorado Springs, Olympic City, USA, and the permanent home of U.S. Space Command. Thank you, colleagues. I noticed that the mayor of Aurora, Mike Kaufman, former congressman, is here as well. Mayor Kaufman. We now turn to the very specific and very special business of legislating, creating the laws that govern society, control our state government, and hopefully make the people of Colorado more free to live the lives they choose and pursue the dreams to which they aspire. As we gather here with our aspirations for the policies we are eager to champion, it is critically important that we be actively attentive to the perspectives of the people who sent us here, with the expectation that we would serve them, and this is an echo in many ways of what the President has just said, as the temporary custodians of the sovereignty they inherently possess, a sovereignty that gives them authority to master and control their government in this grand experiment of representative democracy we call America. In this chamber, it is not our business to raise armies, secure the nation's borders, or launch a navy, but that makes the work we do in the next 119 days no less important in the lives of the people we represent. In fact, because the work we do is physically closer to the homes and businesses of Coloradans and is meted out with local specificity, in fact, our work may be more important. A word before I move on to policy about how we do that business. Decorum is fundamental to the success of our work and fundamental to achieving the goals created in representation of the sovereignty of the people whom we represent. We must be able to bring disparate and conflicting ideas together in a way that is rich with the values presented and equally rich in a respect for the process and the people with whom we engage in that process. The question is, will the noise and obstreperous behavior outside this chamber influence us, or will we influence for the better the noise and challenging behavior outside this chamber? I would say today we've already heard echoes of that and the positive potential influence of this chamber. We heard noise in the House gallery and noise in the rotunda, appropriate in some ways, at the edge of decorum in others. And we heard a homily and prayer presented side by side from a rabbi and an imam in this chamber. I would echo many of the comments that the President has just said about how we conduct ourselves. And I would pull from that speech two words: civility in our engagement with each other, integrity in our engagement with each other. Mr. President, again, I thank you for your comments. Recent reports have given us a stark reality check, painting a picture of Colorado that we cannot afford to ignore. Just a short time ago, we were ranked by a popular business network, CNBC, as the 4th best place in the nation to do business. But now we find ourselves slipping to the 11th spot. Our state's cost of living has received a dismal D+ rating. That's one tick above failure. And the inflation rate for food has reached levels not seen since 1979. Now, I graduated from high school in '77. That was a long time ago. The statistics are daunting. The price of flour is up 22%, rice and cheese up 20%. The essential items like milk, ground beef, bread, eggs, and coffee beans collectively up 35% in just 5 years. These numbers represent not just statistics, but the daily struggle of our fellow Coloradans. Among other challenges, the cost of living is driving our residents away. Denver, once known for its growth and prosperity, witnessed the 9th highest outflow of residents in the country between October and December. just this last year. People who have called this state home for generations are tapping out and leaving because daily life is becoming increasingly unaffordable, frequently at the hands of the policies we produce in this chamber. The plight of our small businesses cannot be overlooked either. They are straining under the weight of regulations and burdens imposed upon them by this legislature. A recent survey by the Colorado Chamber of Commerce reveals that the cost of living and the lack of affordable housing are the two biggest barriers to recruiting and retaining a quality workforce. An alarming 86% of our state's business leaders find it more expensive to conduct business in the Front Range of Colorado when compared to other states. And that's not just the surrounding states, that's across the country, due to specifically excessive regulations and mandates. Affordable housing is fundamental. It's an issue that's intertwined with our need to reform Colorado's construction defects laws. These laws promote litigation, stifling the construction of much-needed for-sale multifamily housing. The solution to affordable housing necessitates hundreds of billions of dollars in investment, which are currently flowing to other states. Initiatives like Proposition 123, although important, and public policy, although important, those responses only address a fraction of the problem. You can do simple math that says 1% of the problem. We must entice investment back to Colorado, for that is the only way to tackle the remaining 99% of this housing crisis. Relief, relief, relief. These are the words that should echo in this chamber and resound throughout our state. 65% of businesses in a recent statewide survey are calling for relief from the regulations that create mandates and increase costs, which cascade onto the backs of the people of Colorado with inevitability. We have heard those voices, and we must heed their call. Colleagues, friends, fellow senators, we are at a crossroads. The future of our state, the prosperity of our people, and the survival of our small businesses are all hanging in the balance. It is our solemn duty to provide relief to the people of Colorado and the businesses of Colorado. We must work together to alleviate the burdens that have been imposed upon them. Let us advance Colorado to a better glory as a thriving state where businesses flourish, families thrive, and dreams are within reach. I implore you to join us in this call for relief, to act decisively and swiftly to address these pressing issues, and to ensure that the people of Colorado have the opportunity to lead prosperous lives in the state we all love and hold so dear. Thank you, colleagues, for your attention. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to speak.
The Senate will come back to order. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the remarks of the President and the Minority Leader be spread upon the pages of the Journal.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, the motion is adopted and they shall be spread. Message from the House.
January 10, 2024, Mr. President, the House has adopted and transmits herewith House Joint Resolution 1001 and 1002 as printed in House Journal, January 10, 2024, pursuant to House Joint Resolution 1001, the Speaker has appointed Representative Garcia Chair, Brown and Soper, R. Jones, Chief Clerk of the House.
Introduction and consideration of resolutions. Will the reader please read the title of House Joint Resolution 1001?
House Joint Resolution 1001, Representative Duran and Senator Rodriguez, concerning a joint session of the House of Representatives and the Senate for the purpose of hearing a message from His Excellency Governor Jared Polis and appointing a committee to escort the governor.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the House Joint Resolution 1001 regarding the joint session to hear the state of the state address.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is for the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1001. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, the resolution is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senators Michelson, Janae, Priola, Cutter, Exum. Pursuant to the resolution, Senators Exum and Rich are appointed to escort the governor to the State of the State address. Will the reader please read the title of House Joint Resolution 1002?
House Joint Resolution 1002 by Representatives Duran and Lynch and Senators Rodriguez and Lundin concerning changes to the joint rules of the Senate and House of Representatives regarding oversight responsibilities of committees of reference.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1002 regarding the oversight responsibilities of committees of reference. Collapsed committees.
Members, just so folks know, and Majority Leader Rodriguez, feel free to provide more information, but I believe this is just, so committees are in joint rule, strangely, and the House made changes to their committees. I think they collapsed 2 of the committees into 1, maybe made some changes, but we have to amend joint rules anytime they change the name or makeup of a committee in the way that they did. Happy to chat more if folks would like a senatorial 5, but that is the purpose for doing this resolution. It's the House. They, you know. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is for the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1002. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, the resolution is adopted. Co-sponsors. That's kind of what I thought. Introduction of bills.
Senate Bill 1 by Senator Michelson Janae and Representative Brown concerning continuation of the Youth Mental Health Service Program and in connection therewith requiring an annual evaluation of the program.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 2 by Representatives McCluskey and Frizzell concerning the authority of a local government to establish a property tax incentive program to address an area of specific local concern related to the use of real property in the government's jurisdiction, and in connection therewith authorizing counties and municipalities to offer limited property tax credits or rebates to incentive program participants.
Local government and housing.
Senate Bill 3, Senator Sullivan and Representative Froelich, concerning the authority of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation to investigate illegal activity involving firearms and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 4 by Senators Pelton, Arend, Fields, and Representatives Frizzell and Lindstedt concerning the administration of county veteran services offices.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
Senate Bill 5 by Senators Roberts and Simpson, Representatives McCormick and McLaughlin concerning the conservation of water in the state through the prohibition of certain landscaping practices.
Agriculture and Natural Resources.
Senate Bill 6, Senators Rodriguez and Fields, Representatives English and Branfield, concerning considering factors related to the capability to participate in the judicial process in determining whether to place a person into a pretrial diversion program.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 7, Senators Fields and Michelson-Janay and Representative Titone, concerning creating a behavioral health first aid training program in the Office of Suicide Prevention.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 8, Senators Zenzinger and Kirkmeyer and Representatives Pugliese and Young, concerning increasing support for kinship foster care homes.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 9, Senators Cutter and Jaquez Lewis, Representative Snyder, concerning assisting local governments in disaster-related programs and in connection therewith establishing the slash removal pilot program and providing guidance to local governments on debris removal programs.
Agriculture and Natural Resources.
Senate Bill 10, Senators Janal and Will, Representatives Duran and Hartsook, concerning the adoption of the Dentist and Dental Hygienist Compact.
Health and Human Services. Members, there will be more bills coming, but we're not going to have you sit through them because there are quite a few pre-filed bills to introduce. Announcements. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues who serve on the Judiciary Committee, this year we're getting busy immediately. We will be meeting at 1 o'clock for our joint Judiciary Smart Act hearing, day one of many. Thank you.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I kind of right now don't miss judiciary. So just a reminder, everybody, that the Senate will be convening at 10 o'clock for the rest of the week for tomorrow and Friday. The Senate will be closed Monday, January 15th in observance of Martin Luther King Day. And on Tuesday, we will be convening at 10 o'clock again that day, and we will probably proceed to 9 o'clock after that. So just a little bit of information. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock, the House chamber will be hearing the State of the State address. A seat will be provided for you next to your counterparts in the House. Lanyards will be provided to all senators who want to attend. The lanyards are a security measure implemented by the State Patrol to identify you as a member of the Senate during the joint session. See the secretary if you need a lanyard. And then we're going into a recess today. We'll read some more bills across the desk later, but that's pretty much all we're doing, so no need to return. So I move that the Senate recess until 3 o'clock today. To read some more, just reading bills across the desk. 3 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. The ayes have it, and the Senate will recess until 1 o'clock today.